Welcome to Season 5 of the Manufacturers Network. Real talk with the people building what's next in manufacturing. And now your host, Lisa Ryan.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Excited to introduce our guest today, Ethan Giffin. Ethan is the founder and CEO of the B2B e-commerce agency and author of Closing the Digital Revenue Gap, a book built from nearly 2 decades of working inside mid-market manufacturing and distribution companies. He helps executive teams uncover the revenue they're losing through disconnected systems and stalled digital products and build the kind of digital setting infrastructure their customers will actually use. So, Ethan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Great. So share with us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing what you do.
That's a deep story. So I worked in a large enterprise back in the late 90s and basically took on a role, learned about SEO, learned about websites, learned about conversion rate marketing. And that turned me into just like being so focused on building e-commerce websites. I loved the ability to track every step and every behavior that someone would take on an e-commerce website and to be able to track the revenue from that. So I had started an e-commerce agency called Groove Commerce back in 2007. And over the years, that actually evolved where many of our customers started asking us to help them create private buyer portals so their customers could come buy from them and have all of their terms and credit and price books and all of those things associated with that. And those are much more complex projects than, say, building a t-shirt website or something of that. And so I fell in love with all of those aspects of both the complexity and the depth of those projects, and then being able to track all the behaviors of a customer as they go through that. And to this day, it's still very fascinating to me, and I still continue to learn, I think, on a daily basis, something new.
And you said that you've worked with hundreds of manufacturing companies since 2007. So what is the most common revenue blind spot that you see leaders almost never catch on their own?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that they say they're going to buy from us anyway, that our customers need these products and they're going to only buy them from us. And so that they may be right in some degree with that based upon if they have something completely unique that they manufacture, but that doesn't mean your customers have to feel good about buying it from you. And so very often they're ignoring friction that they've created within their sales process to actually allow a customer to buy something from them. And that generally is the biggest turner to then build a buyer portal for someone and see them start to sell products that their customers may not even been aware of, that their salesperson had never even mentioned to them about that. And we've unlocked that many times over with customers along the way. And when you're a $100, $150 million, $200 million organization, you should be having at a minimum 8 to 10% of your revenue like flowing through a digital channel like this. And if you have a digitally mature customer base, that could be even higher of 30, 40, 50%. But you've got to start somewhere with it. And there needs to be some acknowledgement that your customers are not just going to buy from you anyway. You've got to make it easier for them.
And it seems with all of the competition that's out there and people coming in with doing things with AI, and then you have 3D printing and just about everything else that's out there as far as a technology standpoint, it seems that it's pretty dangerous to get that cocky that only people are going to buy from me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And people will say, we don't need an abandoned cart. We don't need this. We don't need that. People are so distracted these days. You need every tool in the toolbox that you can, because even from a B2B standpoint, your customers are engaging with Amazon, Starbucks, Target, Uber. They're engaging digitally every day over these apps and tools, right? And they expect those same types of experiences when they come to buy in a professional capacity. And so we tell people they don't have to be Amazon, and they can't be Amazon, right? That Amazon has more innovation in one day or 1 hour than many companies will ever have in their lifetime, right? But we need to learn from the tactics that they're doing and apply them in the right ways as we're going down these paths.
And most people cannot be Amazon, but Amazon has really spoiled us just as far as not only deliverability, but also the ease of returns and buying things and when it shows up. So they've set the example and they've really raised the bar for expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's, hey, if I can buy a Domino's pizza, a $15 Domino's pizza, and they can show me every aspect of where that pizza is in the process of being all the way out the door to being delivered to me, why can't I understand the status of my $9,000 parts order, right? Or $90,000 parts order, right? And so I think that those are things that, that last 20% of those types of details, the companies that get it right really get it right.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of talk about digital transformation in manufacturing, but most projects tend to fail for a reason that has nothing to do with technology. So what are you seeing that's actually killing some of these projects?
It's alignment, right? Often manufacturers will start thinking about things like, hey, we need this, right? Great mindset, we need this. And so somebody will say, oh, let's go pick a software, right? Or maybe, our website's built on WordPress. Let's try a software like WooCommerce or something to just sell stuff and see what happens. And what they haven't done is they haven't put together the alignment work in the beginning to get the teams on board. And as part of our process, we host a 3-day on-site immersive discovery session at our studios in Baltimore. And what happens is that we bring folks from marketing, we bring VP of marketing, VP of sales, VP of operations, try to bring the CFO, get the CEO at least there for part of the time. And it's about creating alignment and agreement with how we're going to go forward as a strategy first, right? Because sales doesn't want to get involved with it because they see it as a threat. They might throw the project over just to the VP of marketing because it's a digital project, right? And we're like, no, this is a real revenue channel, right? You've got to think about this like a division. And so that creating that alignment first then allows us to understand what they really need. A lot of organizations might just put the cart before the horse and just pick a software that they get out of the gate with, and then it fails and they never kind of get back. It takes a lot of momentum to get people back moving forward again. If you think about how many organizations have failed kind of CRM or ERP implementations, the same thing can happen within this. And it's about creating that alignment first before you get into the technology.
And they should be used to that or not, because some of them are really bad at it when they are implementing some kind of new automation or robotics coming in. They just go for that next shiny object that some salesperson sold them, and they don't realize that it has to actually work with the rest of the system. So I like the fact of you bringing marketing and sales and everybody else together so that there's one conversation, and make sure that it goes together with all of our other processes before you make that kind of investment in both time and money to do the thing to begin with.
Yeah. We think it takes about 3 years to go through the life cycle of, hey, we know we need this. About a year to the first year is deciding what to do, picking who you're going to do it with and actually building it, right? And then it gets into kind of piloting with your top customers and then activating it with your broader customer base. And then that kind of year 3, you're starting to really optimize and grow it. But then at that point, you've got a true digital revenue channel within your organization, right? And what we try to do is help to teach the muscle memory, help build that muscle memory so that they can take that and go and continue to grow it even further.
Yeah. And you've mentioned this already about sales teams pushing back on it because they see it as a threat. What do you think is driving that resistance, and how do you get leaders to basically get their teams and especially their sales teams on board?
It's fascinating, and they should fear it in many ways. So I've been invited to come in and speak at national sales meetings and other types of organizational meetings like this, and you can see the fear in the salespeople's eyes, like when I'm on the stage looking at them. And what happens is that, again, somebody along the way had the bright idea and said, hey, we can pull the commission back to the house by creating an online platform and just go do this. And a bunch of people will be like, yeah, let's bring the commission back to the house. But the reality is this is a tool that the salespeople need to be bought into, and they need to be a part of the conversation around it, because this should be an extension of their hands, so to speak. Salespeople often spend 70% of their time like dealing with CRM BS, typing data in, typing orders in. Let them sell to their long tail customers and try to grow them into a lighthouse customer, right? Let them actually do what you're paying them to do. So when you set out, you've got to have sales involved. You've got to make sure that they get commission for their accounts using these systems to be able to take part in that. And that's how you get them to actually start really helping your customers. They will start to say, hey, why don't you start leveraging this tool? Because I'll help you set your shopping list up in here of all the things you order over and over again. I'm going to help you get it going. And then really you want to get your customers making 2 or 3 orders to be able to do that along the way. People don't often talk about, like many of us got my start on the direct to consumer side of this business. And that's all about specials and promotions, right? You're 10% off your first order and all those types of things. And so we don't recommend that you need that type of promotion schedule in B2B e-commerce in any way, but it does make sense to have a promotion and an offer to get your customers to place their first order in the system, right? Like, and you give them some amount of credit or amount off. Like there's different ways to slice this, but it's a pain in the ass to log into a system like this the first time and set up your account and make sure all of your information is correct and get it going. And so again, another tactic there is like, how do we entice the customer to make their very first offer? And then we want to track how long it takes for their second order and the third order along the way there.
And I think about my career as a lifelong salesperson, working everything from straight commission to the cushy base salary plus bonus. And now being a speaker, I'm still in sales, but now I'm just selling me. And it's shocking to me still. You mentioned CRMs, how many salespeople just won't use them, that my lifeline is my CRM. But if I can make more money by teaching somebody to use a computer system to place their next orders, and I don't have to physically go into the shop, every month to get that little order, but can get them into the habit, I would see that all day long. And on the other side, it upsets all salespeople when management wants to start playing with the money. Oh, the salespeople aren't working that hard. Without the salespeople, you would not be where you're at there, bucko. So let them earn as much money as they possibly can, because that means you're making more.
100%. Like growing up, my stepmom sold Mercedes-Benz, and she would tell me the story of how the top salesperson in the store had hired their own secretary. I guess that was the 80s. I guess we could say right at that time. And so they had hired their own secretary to work for them. And they would be there greeting the customers as they came in and helping them with the paperwork and helping to bring them coffee, helping them while the salesperson was finishing up test drives, and help to bridge those gaps. And that salesperson was actually able to sell 2 to 3x more than they could on their own. So the numbers fully made sense for them to have that extra support staff. And I think about it the same way with my team, right? I would rather have a virtual assistant offshore somewhere entering in data into our CRM instead of a 6-figure salesperson like doing data entry. And so you've got to really think about how you're going to leverage these types of tools. Like within your organization, they need to become another tool that the salesperson uses in order to sell more. Maybe you do increase quotas, or you do this or do that, but don't take the money away, right? You give them some more accounts and you reset the playing field other ways, but don't try to take the money away for an online order.
I was going to tell you, there is no quicker way to lose a great sales rep than to take money away. Just in case we need to re-emphasize that point. So you work specifically with companies doing in the 100 million to 300 million in revenue range. So what makes that segment different, and why does the playbook have to change?
Yeah. So we like that. So we have some customers that are a little smaller, and we have some that are a little bit bigger along the way with that. But we think that's a good group for us. I worked in an enterprise organization where it took 24 people to sign off on a single decision. So we're able to come in and over the course of 6 to 12 months, help this e-commerce transformation start the beginning of that. And so we think mid-market organizations of that size, they've got the ability to need systems like this. It can create significant revenue channels for them. And then all of that together can create a very nice ROI model for them to build those systems out. We like getting in and out a little bit quicker. We're maybe not built for a 2-year kind of enterprise March type project.
So walk us through a B2B e-commerce blueprint. How does a manufacturer start modernizing their digital sales without destabilizing the operation that they've already built?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a signature system that we utilize as we're engaging with manufacturers and also distributors as well differently. But what we do is we want to make sure that we begin with a solid base. And so we'll begin very in-depth with a very in-depth discovery, as I had mentioned earlier, asking a lot of questions, right? So what you want to do is you want to come in, you want to create that alignment during those initial stages. You've got to ask a lot of questions, right? If you are working with somebody towards e-commerce transformation and they are not asking you a lot of questions in B2B, you do not have the right consultant or partner. I just want to say that because this is much different than traditional direct-to-consumer e-commerce. So you want to be asked a lot of questions. You want to map out, like, where are these, what's going to hold us up? Do we even have a catalog? Or is our catalog just a bunch of SKUs and prices with our own internal lingo and abbreviations and acronyms in a description field? That is not a catalog. We need to get a catalog that is ready for the public to view. That's one of the biggest reasons these projects fail, is not being ready with the catalog or not being able to just fit modern standards with your SKU naming and the way your SKUs are assembled. So you go through that process, you pick a technology platform to work with on this. Usually we tend to recommend picking a vendor, picking a consultancy up front to be able to help you go through this. I would generally say you generally need somebody, even if you have a head of digital or a head of transformation on your team, you need somebody that specializes this the way that you wouldn't go to a brain doctor for a heart problem. You need somebody that's deep in this. And you go through that process to build out the system. Then we get to, once the system is getting into its late stage, we recommend identifying somewhere between 12 to 24 customers that love you and adore you, and they're not going to fire you over something like minor. Somebody that's willing and interested in, if you say to them, hey, we're building our digital channel. Oh, would you mind being an early tester of this? You want to find people like that, and you want to get the system ready for them to come in and place their first order, their second order, their third order. You learn from that. You do that for a month or two, depending upon, again, the maturity of the organization. And then from there, you start to fully roll out and activate to all your customers. I was on the phone with a $400 million manufacturer, and they had spent well over $1 million on building a system, and they had a couple $100,000 in sales and through it in their first 9 months. And they didn't actually they built it, but never activated it with their customers. They never told their customers. They never reinforced it. They never ran salesperson training. They never had office hours for customers to come in and ask questions. They never did any of those types of activities. They sent 2 or 3 emails that weren't even well received, right? So you've got to really activate this thing. And that can take up to 6 to 12 months to really get it buzzing. And so that's how we recommend going through that process. First, a very in alignment, getting your alignment together, then figuring out your technical requirements, then building the system, piloting it, and then fully activating it.
It's so funny when you were talking through that, reaching out to customers that love you. Immediately, I went to, you know what, I wouldn't even limit myself. I would reach out to every single customer in my database that liked me, because you're letting them feel very special, that that you value them enough to get their opinion. And we both know that people love to give their opinions on stuff. So whether or not they ever even take you up on it, the fact that you reached out to them and you planted that seed, you have no idea where that seed's going to be later. So I really like that process. And again, don't understand why people wouldn't activate it, because this is not Field of Dreams, people. Just because you build it doesn't mean they are coming.
They ain't coming. They're not coming. Listen, I was at my doctor's office recently and they had switched over to a new practice software. And they had the software company had sent 2 representatives down to sit at both front desks with the front desk people as they implemented this and get their first week or 2 of customers through the system. And people think that it's online, that they don't have to do any of that stuff. And I'm like, you're crazy. We actually should be involved. We want to meet your customers. We want to get their feedback. We want to be able to help them, because we think these tools are, like, most people think they're assets, right? They want to order. Your customers want to order when they want to order, whether that's 10 o'clock at night or Sunday morning or whenever that is. You just want to make that available to them.
Exactly. So you've run your agency for almost 20 years alongside a completely separate life as a DJ for major nonprofit galas.
Yes.
So what does that dual path teach you about building systems that don't depend on you being in the room?
It's funny, and it costs a lot of money. I will say that it's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah.
First out of the gate, but I started DJing in 1989, and I'm 50.
When you had to actually bring records with you.
Yes, and I had to carry them, and I actually talk about that in my presentations often. But and as having a business in Baltimore for so long, I would get invited to be on boards and take part in different nonprofit galas. And over, I was like, man, the entertainment really sucks, or again, they didn't really put forth an effort to make this thing pop as an event. And so eventually I just said, hey, I'm going to volunteer my time to do this. And so that's what I do. I work with a handful of nonprofits and do their galas. And I continue to add equipment every week. Something new shows up, and my wife is like another box of DJ equipment appearing. And so I do make a little bit of, for corporations that I do some things for, I charge for that. I also charge some expenses, and I have roadies and things for these events. I do recoup a little of the cost of the equipment and rentals and things, but it's a great time, and it really helps me to stay involved with the community and something unique that not everybody can do. And the other thing is that all the 90s and early 2000s music is so popular still that people have such a great time with that. I play from the 70s to kind of the early 2000s.
Okay. And I think that it's a good reminder for our listeners that there is life outside of just work and figuring things out of how we're going to run our day-to-day business, and pursuing other personal passions that may or may not bring in money, but it gives us a different access to different sides of life as well.
Yes.
So I'm taking that reminder myself, because sometimes I get caught up. We all do. Also, I know that you have a book called Closing the Digital Revenue Gap.
Yeah.
So if the manager or COO is listening right now, what's the one chapter that they want to read first?
There's 10 great chapters full of stories. And I think I would guarantee you that one of the chapters, probably they'll be like, did they write this about me? So it's everything from too much of my revenue, it requires hands to type it in, to my customers are leaving because I've created too much quiet friction in the process. I put together a group of stories over our times of working with manufacturers and distributors, and put those in a book so that why is this important, and some things to think about if you're going through it. And so I'm happy to offer this for free to any of your listeners that want to go to my website, which is b2becombook.com, ecombook.com. And feel free to offer you a free copy as well as a consultation if you're interested in that. It's a great read. It's something that you could read on an airplane ride. And it creates a lot of questions to ponder. Is something or one of these 10 things happening within your organization?
All right, awesome. And if somebody wants to not only get your book, but also continue the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way is to pop over to our website, which is b2becommerceagency.com, b2becommerceagency.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn under Ethan Giffin. And I've got a very active LinkedIn account where I'm posting almost daily on things that I'm finding in the B2B e-commerce world.
Ethan, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful meeting you, and I really appreciate the conversation.
I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network Podcast. If this conversation gave you something to think about, share it with someone else who will get it. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.